The North Korean leader is expected to stop by and tour a fighter jet plant in Russia's Far East on his way home today. While the Kremlin made it official that Vladimir Putin has welcomed Kim's invitation to visit the North, South Korea on Thursday warned Pyongyang and Moscow to stop any arms deal. And President Yoon will once again call out the two sides' apparent weapons accord at the UN General Assembly in New York next week. He'll also go for a last-minute push for Busan's World Expo 2030 bid. The death toll following floods in Libya has hit over 11,300 now. Global aid effort continues to pour in, with the World Health Organization releasing $2 million from its emergency fund for the country. North Korea's Kim Jong-un appears to be making the most out of his Russia trip. Following the summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin, Kim is looking to explore a fighter jet plant today in Khabarovsk before returning home. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Lee Dae-hyun starts us off.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un appears to be on his way to the city of Khabarovsk. A train station in the area was spotted getting ready for Kim's visit as Russian President Vladimir Putin mentioned that Kim would soon visit there. Kim will reportedly look around a high-tech aircraft production plant in Khabarovsk on Friday. It seems that the North Korean leader will also visit a local shipyard as well to look at attack submarines and warship building facilities. His last stop in Russia is expected to be Vladivostok. There, he will likely tour the Russian Pacific Fleet, where he might actually go on a warship and watch a military exercise. Kim will then head back to North Korea. Kim and Putin could possibly meet again soon, as the Kremlin on Thursday said that the Russian leader accepted Kim's invitation to visit the North with pleasure. The Kremlin spokesperson added that every bilateral agreement will be made through diplomatic channels. It also said that the two leaders exchanged rifles during their summit on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the South Korean government says any actions by North Korea and Russia that violate UN Security Council resolutions and threaten South Korea's security will come at a clear cost. The National Security Council committee members on Thursday called on Moscow and Pyongyang to not get involved in an arms trade. The Biden administration has also remained consistent with its message that any new arms deal between Moscow and Pyongyang will lead to, quote, repercussions. It also urged North Korea to not support Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
And the U.S. has imposed sanctions on more than 150 entities accused of aiding Russia in its aggression against Ukraine. Now, this time, the sanctions package also targets the so-called transit countries like Turkey and Georgia. Lee Seung-ja has more.
In what is one of the largest sanctions packages announced by the U.S. State and Treasury Departments, Washington on Thursday issued a fresh round of sanctions against over 150 entities involved with helping Russia evade sanctions and supporting Moscow in its war against Ukraine. Those involved with helping Russia include businesses and people in Turkey, Georgia, the UAE, Russia, and more. According to Reuters, the latest designations target shipping and trade companies involved in helping repair sanctioned vessels linked to Russia's defense ministry, while also helping with the transfer of dual-use goods, items which have both civilian and military application. It also targets those that sell Western technology to Moscow that could be used to fuel its war in Ukraine. However, watchers have raised concerns over the fact that some of the entities targeted in Washington's latest sanctions package are from Turkey. The U.S. imposed sanctions on 5 Turkish companies and 1 Turkish national linked with helping Russia evade sanctions and supporting Moscow in its war in Ukraine. However, the U.S. State Department says it's not worried that measures taken against Turkish firms will derail Sweden's NATO bid.
We have a constructive, warm relationship with the Turkish government. They are an important ally of ours, and we don't see that in any way these sanctions should have any impact at all on that accession.
Also, among those sanctioned by the U.S. on Thursday is Russia's largest vehicle manufacturer, AutoVAZ, and a major local copper producer, the Russian Copper Company. Lee Seung-ja, Arirang News.
And President Yoon will be in New York next week for his second appearance at the UN General Assembly. He'll be mingling with around 30 leaders to convince them that Busan is the most suitable city to host the 2030 World Expo. Kim Do-yeon has more.
President Yoon Suk-yeol is looking to strengthen South Korea's status as a globally contributing country while making his biggest push yet for Busan's bid to host the World Expo in 2030. On Wednesday, the presidential office announced that President Yoon will be in New York from Monday to Friday.
During this general meeting, the president will launch an all-out diplomatic campaign to get support for Busan's bid to host the World Expo in 2030. At the moment, around 30 meetings with other leaders are scheduled, with more in the works. This is something that no other South Korean president has attempted during overseas trips.
As soon as he lands in New York, President Yoon will start his series of bilateral meetings with the leaders of Turkmenistan and the Czech Republic, among others. On the second day, he will meet with his Ghanaian counterpart as well as UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. A number of bilateral sideline meetings will happen in between, including with 10 countries that South Korea never has met before one-on-one, such as San Marino and St. Lucia. The third day will be when Yoon speaks to the UN General Assembly.
President Yoon will promise to the world continued enhancement of official development assistance to close the global development gaps, support to reduce carbon emissions and the transition to clean energy in climate-vulnerable countries, and for South Korea to be responsible for the world enjoying the benefits of digital technology.
Kim also explained that Yoon will have the opportunity to share South Korea's vision as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for 2 years starting in 2024. On Thursday, he will be returning to New York University's Digital Vision Forum, as last year he was there to emphasize the importance of digital technologies in contributing to the expansion of freedom. He is expected to re-emphasize South Korea's taking the lead in creating regulations for fair and equitable access to digital assets. On his last day, he will wrap up his stay in New York with meetings with the leaders of the Pacific Islands. While the top office's focus may be on winning votes at BIE for Busan's bid to host World Expo 2030, it does come with the backdrop of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visiting Russia's Vladimir Putin, with the two strengthening military cooperation. An official says the public can expect an appropriate analysis and message for the two in Yoon's speech to the UN General Assembly. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The death toll from the devastating floods in Libya's coastal city of Derna has soared to over 11,300 as search efforts continue. According to local authorities on Thursday, there are still over 10,000 more people missing, with city officials saying the death toll could rise to 20,000. Now, that figure would mean a fifth of the city's population died in the disaster. And in response, the World Health Organization announced it will be releasing $2 million from its emergency fund to support the flood victims. The WHO added that it also sent contingency supplies as well as trauma, surgical, and emergency supplies from its logistic hub in Dubai. The U.S. benchmark WTI rose above $90 to a fresh high for the year on Thursday. And the world benchmark, Brent crude, also hit a 10-month high the previous day. What's behind these continuing increases? We're joined by Professor Heo Jun-young this morning. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Good morning.
Professor, first, walk us through the reasons behind the oil price hikes. Now, what's driving the soaring prices? I hear the flood catastrophe in Libya has also to do with it, right?
Yeah, that's right. So both supply and demand side effects are going on. So from the supply side, Saudi Arabia and Russia, they extended voluntary supply cut, which was expected to be ended at the end of this month, but they extended into until the end of this year. So the supply side effect will go on. And also, on top of this, OPEC member Libya shut down its eastern oil export terminal due to the deadly storm. And OPEC Plus member Kazakhstan reduced daily oil output for maintenance. So, I mean, these are the supply side effect. And also, I mean, we are at the pace of the U.S. interest rate hike it's coming to an end. Though though the world economy will be bouncing back soon, so people expect that. So demand side also there's driving high demand of oil. Due to the better expectation about the future economic condition.
Right. You just mentioned the U.S. inflation also being influenced by this price hikes. Now, the U.S. Consumer Price Index ticked up 3.7% on year last month, and also because gas prices climbed. Then the question is, how much higher will the prices actually go?
Actually, every 3 months, the FOMC members, they have their expectation about the future economic outlook. So the most recent forecast is coming from the June forecast. The FOMC members, they expect that at the end of this year, the inflation will be 3.2%, but the latest number of PCE, personal consumption expenditure, inflation is 3.3% in July, but due to the rising oil price, I think their expectation in this month, in September release number, will be slightly higher than 3.2%. So, which is still a lot higher than the Federal Reserve inflation expectation of 2%. And the Fed official, they believe that inflation will be reaching to 2%, their goal until the end of 2020, I think, 5. So maybe we'll have 2 more years to go up to until the inflation is brought down to 2%. So it's kind of time needed.
Right. In line with what you're saying, Saudi Arabia and Russia are expected to extend their oil cuts to the end of the year. Now, is there anything that can be done to bring the prices down in the meantime?
The thing is, the Federal Reserve, U.S. monetary policy is the key. So, people in the market, they are worrying about, whether or not there's one more interest rate hike from the Federal Reserve. Because higher interest rate, maybe it reduces, aggregate demand, and then maybe it will affect the inflation, and so that the inflation can be brought down. So, that's the only way, I think, from the, demand side. And supply side effect, maybe inflation is affected by global oil price, but there's, not much thing that we can do about the global oil price. So maybe, it's up to the OPEC or OPEC plus their supply, how much supply they do. And also it will depend upon the global economic condition. Currently the Chinese market is not in a good sense. Because of the their real estate market.
Right.
But if their demand will, if that bounce back, it will have a kind of downside effect of higher oil price. So maybe things are dependent upon this kind of global economic situation as well. So.
Sure. Many experts are predicting that the U.S. central bank's fight against inflation will be trickier if oil prices continue that, upward trend. Then will surging oil prices be a variable to consider at the next FOMC meeting next week? What's your outlook?
Yeah, so next FOMC meeting will be held in this month. People expect that this month the Federal Reserve will maintain the same interest rate. 5.5% interest rate. But the thing is, whether or not this higher oil price will affect their decision on November, which is the next FOMC meeting, and it will depend upon how long this higher oil price will go. So if this kind of trend will persist, maybe the Fed will be considering another interest rate hike in November. If not, maybe the 5.55 will be the terminal interest rate, and then next year maybe the Fed will start to decrease the interest rate maybe.
All right, Professor Ha, thank you so much for your insight this morning. You have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
South Korea and its world lowest birth rate is well known, but one county around 2 hours from Seoul has actually seen fertility rates there go up. Our Lee Soo-jin went to see how this was possible.
Baby whales and classroom chatter might soon be a thing of the past. This elementary school is just one of many in South Korea that have been abandoned and shut down due to the lack of students. And this comes as South Korea's fertility rate continues to shatter records. The nation's total fertility rate, the average number of children expected per woman, tumbled to a record low of 0.78 last year. As of 2021, South Korea is the only OECD member country where the total fertility rate is less than 1. And this year's fertility rate for the second quarter fell further to 0.7. We asked young South Koreans why they're hesitant to have children.
If I get married, both me and my husband will probably have to work because of the high education costs. But if there's no childcare center that I can trust, it might be better to just not have children.
The reality is that raising a kid is costly because of the high education costs.
But there are still areas in South Korea where fertility rates have actually gone up. This county in Gangwon-do province has a fertility rate that greatly exceeds the national average. Let's go find out how it has achieved this. We met with the mayor of Hwacheongun County, who told us that this was largely due to a decade-long effort to provide a comprehensive support system with a focus on alleviating the education cost burden.
We wanted to provide equal opportunities for people regardless of their economic background, from the time the baby is in their mother's womb until the child graduates college.
The county pays college tuitions of not only students attending domestic colleges, but also any of the world's top 100 universities, as long as they have parents who have lived in Hwacheon for at least 3 years. While the nation's fertility rate has been on a steady decline since 2015, Hwacheon's fertility rate actually rose from 1.2 in 2021 to 1.4 last year. During this period, a new public postpartum rest center opened. Postpartum rest centers are clinics unique to Korean culture that help mothers recuperate after giving birth. Women typically stay at these centers for 2 weeks where staff care for newborns while the mothers rest. They can cost up to around $12,000.
Anyone who's lived in Hwacheon for at least a year can use the center for 2 weeks at no cost. I've lived here for 3 years, so I'm staying here for free.
There are also programs aimed at helping them transition into motherhood smoothly.
The programs that teach us practical skills such as how to bathe a newborn and breastfeed properly have been super helpful.
The county also offers services where elementary school students can hail a bus through a smartphone app.
주로 오는데 얼마 정도 걸려요?
2분.
The bus stops at various locations and parents receive text messages that inform them of their child's location. The importance of coming up with a comprehensive solution like this was echoed by one expert.
The government has already implemented various policies, including financial incentives for having children, improving work-life balance, and expanding childcare services. Yet to be effective, policies must take a comprehensive approach.
She added that there also needs to be more measures aimed at providing affordable housing and stable jobs, as well as creating a cultural shift away from the traditional nuclear family structure. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin on the small Italian island of Lampedusa, where over 7,000 migrants and refugees have arrived in just 2 days. Now, the volume of people has exceeded the island's own population of 6,000, and its local reception center is being overwhelmed. Many of the migrants, including children, have been forced to sleep outside. In response, authorities are moving thousands of migrants to Sicily, which has bigger processing facilities. Lampedusa is Italy's southernmost island and is known as a hotspot for migrants looking to cross into Europe from North Africa. The journey is perilous, with many crossing the Mediterranean Sea in flimsy wooden boats. According to the UN Migration Agency, so far this year, at least 2,000 people have died attempting to reach Italy and Malta. Now, in the United States, President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has been indicted on 3 federal gun charges. All 3 charges on Thursday relate to allegations that Hunter lied on forms while buying a gun at a time when he was a drug user. In July, Hunter was set to have the charges against him dropped for pleading guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax crimes and illegally possessing a gun while a drug user. But his plea deal with prosecutors was rejected by a judge, citing concern over the agreement's structure and the scale of its immunity. The president's son is a former lawyer and was discharged from the U.S. Navy in 2014 after testing positive for cocaine. He is also facing an investigation into his business dealings and allegations of tax evasion. Now, a sweater worn by Princess Diana has been auctioned for over $1.1 million, the highest price ever paid for a sweater. It went under the hammer for a 2-week online bidding war that ended on Thursday. It was originally estimated to fetch a high of $80,000. The iconic red sweater features a pattern of white sheep with a lone black sheep. Diana first wore the sweater in public at a polo match in 1981, a month before marrying then Prince Charles. The sweater became an instant sensation. Now, hosted by Sotheby's, the sale was part of a fashion icons auction that featured 10 iconic pieces from influential figures, including Sarah Jessica Parker and Michelle Obama. And finally, models with disabilities took center stage at New York Fashion Week. Over 70 models took to the catwalk on Wednesday and showcased a range of adaptive clothing, specifically designed to give those with disabilities access to fashion. The show was organized by a non-profit, the Runway of Dreams Foundation, which works with fashion retailers to adapt their clothing to the needs of all consumers. Brands represented at the show included Adidas, Tommy Hilfiger, and Victoria's Secret.
Good morning. It has been a very rainy and gloomy week with more wet conditions expected through the weekend. It's drizzling in the capital, but parts of Jeollanam-do province are seeing downpours with heavy rain advisory being issued there. And today's rain will mainly come down in central parts of the country. The capital area and parts of Gangwon-do province could see 10 to 60 millimeters of showers. The rest of the country could see 20 to 80 millimeters into Saturday. Southern regions will see rain tapering off and taking a break from this afternoon into tomorrow. So you will notice highs going up 3 to 4 degrees higher than yesterday, but breezier in central regions with rain all day. Jeju-do will be rain-free today, but rain that starts on Saturday will continue into next Monday. Now, a rainy weekend ahead, and next week looks to be as rainy and cloudy as this week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next week because it's Friday.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Join Ashley for a treat for the eyes and ears. It's time to watch the radio. You're watching Radio Clock. You're watching Arirang.
몽게 내리고 sky high attitude going my crew 끌어올리지는 바지 좀 boom 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 step doom 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 빨리 내 앞에서 비켜 vroom vroom vroom.
I heard that Korea's MZ generation flocked to this market, ready to awaken your shopping senses.
Lose it or spend it.
What matters?
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
You
We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We're News Generation. Making news just for you. It's September 15th here in Seoul. I'm Yoon, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. As you can see, today I'm joined by two special guests. On my right is Patrick Bupacher, a ballet dancer from Switzerland.
Well, hello, my name is Patrick. I'm from Switzerland. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, pleasure is ours. And another special guest, it's Sydney Fertility, a freelance model and actor from Canada.
Hi, yeah, my name is Sydney, and as you know, I'm from Canada, and it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
I cannot wait to talk to you guys very soon. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Now, let me explain to you why we have these two special guests today. From 2016, Korea has been celebrating every third Saturday of September as Youth Day, and that's tomorrow. And this day aims to commemorate and encourage all young people out there in the country. As a way to celebrate this day ourselves, we prepared something special on NewsGen. We brought in some global young people to discuss a wide range of issues they've dealt with both here in Korea and abroad, topics that many millennials and Gen Z can relate to. So, as representatives of the world, I guess, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Well, I was born and raised in Switzerland. After finishing my studies in Switzerland, I have been working in Switzerland and in Australia. And coming to Korea has actually been a happy accident for me. I was very fortunate to have been offered a job here. So for the past 5.5 years, I have been working as a ballet dancer in Korea.
And you know what? We're seeing on the screen right now beautiful pictures of yourself. That's you, Patrick, right?
Yes, that's me.
So you're a ballet dancer in Korea. How long has it been in Korea?
Over 5.5 years.
Over 5.5 years. So you can represent the youth not only in Switzerland, but also Swiss youth in Korea.
Probably.
Yes, hopefully. What about you, Sydney? Introduce yourself.
So I'm from the Canadian Rocky Mountains in British Columbia, and I've been living in Korea on and off for 7 years.
7 years?
So all my time put together, it's been 7 years that I've been living here. And I recently just graduated from my master's at Goryeo University.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. 2 years of applied linguistics, and now I'm working in the entertainment field. So it's been very interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of fun, yeah.
All right, so you two will not only be representing young people living in Korea, like foreigners living in Korea, but those living in Canada and Switzerland. And let's start off with today's discussion topic being Youth Day. Why don't we first define how youth is defined in your respective countries and whether there's a Youth Day, starting with Switzerland?
Well, apparently there is an International Youth Day on 12th of August that was appointed by the United Nations. However, to be quite frank with you, I have never heard of it before researching it for today's show. So I don't think it's widely known in Switzerland either. In Switzerland, we would generally define youth as 14, 15 to latest mid-20s.
Mid-20s?
Yes.
That's quite young.
Yes.
Because here in Korea, we define youth from 19 to around 38. So 25 is quite young.
Yes.
What about you, Sydney? What's the situation like in Canada?
So we're the same. We have the International Youth Day. And Canada started using it since 2000. But to be honest, I never heard of it either until researching for this program. And for us, we actually define youth as between 15 and 30. So it's a bit of a difference, but still younger than 38.
Younger than Korea. I think Korea has the longest cap for youth.
I mean, you guys look really young, so I mean, I understand, but still.
Right, and it's quite fascinating to hear that you guys never heard of Youth Day, and I'm guessing that's because the definition and the age group for youth is quite confined.
Yeah, it's very broad spectrum and very different per country as well.
But at least we do have a common denominator, which is that we have Youth Day both in Korea, Canada, and Switzerland. So let's now check if we have similar issues that we're going through in terms of youth problems that we have. And so we asked our viewers from around the world to share their latest problems and concerns. If you take a look at the screen, you can find out what our global viewers had to say. Let's start with travel holidays. The biggest problem in my country is unemployment and the brain drain due to the lack lack of proper employment opportunities, lots of educated youth are migrating to Gulf countries in search of jobs. Benny, D97, said the biggest concern for the youth in the Philippines is teenage pregnancy and dropping out of school. Doina Arhire said in Romania, the biggest concern for the youth is getting a well-paid job, and another one, buying a house. So thank you to our viewers who shared what youth are going through in their respective countries. I'll take the first one with Benny. I think teenage pregnancy and dropping out of school is always a societal issue. It's not only confined to the Philippines, it's always an issue globally. And a lot of education ministries and health ministries are trying to tackle that. But apart from what Benny said, is there anyone that you would like to, talk about? What problems that our viewers mentioned that you would like to touch upon? Starting with you, Patrick.
Yeah, sure. Hello, Doina here. I can very much understand that buying a house at a young age is very difficult. These days in Switzerland, it's actually very difficult to find affordable living space.
What about you, Sydney? Anyone you'd like to comment to?
Yeah, so travel holidays NP. For us too, it's hard to find jobs, and it's not easy, and it's, I think, a global issue in general, to be honest. So.
I think that's why Youth Day, it could be such a good topic of discussion, because though we may have different age groups of how we define youth, the problems that we all have are quite similar. And that leads me to another part of our discussion topic that we'll be talking about. We'll be coming back after this. And apart from the problems raised by our viewers, a youth counseling center in Korea has asked a group of millennials and Gen Z to share their latest concerns. Take a look at the screen. Here's the top 5 issues concerning South Koreans in our generation. So we're going to unravel 3 of them, and that's going to be employment, dating, and marriage. So let's first take a look at the first issue, which is employment. The concept of finding a perfect job seems to be close to impossible here in Korea. What's it like in Canada? Is it hard to land a job? And start us off by telling us the employment rate there.
So in Canada, it's around 57% employment rate, but we have around a 10% for the youth, a 10% unemployment rate. So it is rather difficult to find a good job or a job that you want just due to the high competition. But people are finding jobs, and women are actually showing higher employment rate for long-term positions, and men are actually losing that, but men are still maintaining higher paid positions. But women are also getting higher pay slowly but surely, and they're all making quite good money, the ones who have a solid employment rate.
So the employment rate might not be too high at the moment, but those who have one are having secure paychecks coming in.
Exactly.
What about in Switzerland?
Well, the employment rate in Switzerland is actually very high, around 80%. At the same time, the youth unemployment rate is very low. But one of the difficulties that we face is that at a very young age, we already have to decide what our professional future will look like. In case that we want to go study, already in 5th grade, we have to take an entrance exam for what we call gymnasium, which is a sort of a preparatory high school. And after 6th grade is when actually our school gets divided into secondary school A, B, C, and gymnasium. So those people that attend secondary school, in their 7th year, they have to start looking for apprenticeships. So that means they will have to go and find the place that they will learn their jobs.
Wow. But they're so young.
That's already at 14. That's very young and very hard at such a young age. Actually, my case was even younger. I had to decide at 11.
11 years old? You wanted to be a ballet dancer since you were 11?
I had to decide that I'm going to do it at 11. So in Switzerland, the majority of people decide to be a commercial employee as it leaves them a broader spectrum of possibilities once they finish their apprenticeship. Once people finish their apprenticeships in Switzerland, there's always the possibility to get hired right into the company they have done their apprenticeships at. However, if that's not the case, Switzerland offers a good job market.
Right.
And if you have what it takes, finding a good job in Switzerland is not too hard. But the question will then just be if it's the right job for you or not. But yeah, like I said, finding a good job is probably easier than finding affordable living space.
I think that's a positive light to things.
Yes.
But that's quite fascinating. From 5th grade, you have to choose whether you're going to take a path in academia or you want a technical job. But I'm quite fascinated to hear that Switzerland is providing the right infrastructure for either options. Now, staying with employment, a lot of Korean millennials and Gen Z either do the so-called quiet quitting or they actually just quit their jobs months into their new post. And I'm wondering, is that the same case in Canada and Switzerland as well? Would you guys think that the job satisfaction rate is similar to that in Korea, or is it higher in Switzerland?
Well, there's always cases of people leaving their jobs very soon after getting hired. When you start a job in Switzerland, there's always going to be a trial period of 1 to 3 months. And within that trial period, getting out of your contract is actually a lot easier, and the period of notice is very short. But I believe that in Switzerland, people would much rather suffer a little bit in a job they might not like than being unemployed.
Ah, I see. No wonder the employment rate is so high.
Yes.
What about in Canada?
So for us, like the satisfaction rate is around 40% for generally around the field, but still there's around 66% of workers who are quiet quitting. And so they're just not feeling that they're being appreciated enough or being paid enough for the work that they are performing. And so they're like, hey, if I'm not getting paid for doing 3 jobs, I'll just do what I'm being paid for, which is 1 job. And so, or they just quit. They're like, I can't afford to do this anymore.
I think that's a trait globally amongst millennials and Gen Z. We want to be rightfully paid for our worth and the amount of dedication we put in the workplace.
And also to be able to live, to be able to pay for your rent.
Exactly.
And if you're not getting paid for how much work you're doing and you can't pay your rent, then you need to change jobs.
Exactly. Considering high living costs, you can't afford to do that. But what's the work-life balance? I think that's the key concept that makes a lot of millennials and Gen Z want to stay there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like the work-life balance in Canada is very different to Korea. Korea, you still have that nunchi, like that. You have to stay at work until your manager or your boss leaves.
Right.
But in Canada, you work until, say, 5 p.m., you're done. Even if my manager is still there, it's like, enjoy your work, I will see you tomorrow. And also, the divide between work and life is after 5 p.m., I will not answer my work calls, I will not answer any emails or anything regarding work because I'm not being paid for that.
Okay, so there's a very big distinction as to what happens in the workplace during work hours and post. And how do you know, how would you compare that to Korea? Because I know you also have experience working here, right?
Yeah, so I worked at an all-girls high school, and even though I wasn't as burdened by the societal things of work, but still, like if I was sick, I still came to work.
Right.
Pre-COVID, of course. And so, like, because I saw other teachers who came and they're like literally dying, and you're like, okay, maybe I should still come even though I have like a really bad headache and a bit of a fever. I'll still go, because there's people who are literally on their deathbed still working. So.
Because of that nunchi, the concept in Korea, where you're stepping on eggshells, looking around and being like, okay, if that person is literally dying and still coming to the office,
I should probably come too.
I should probably come too. Patrick, can you relate to any of this? Like, how was your work experience in Korea like? Do you think that there's a distinctive workplace culture here?
Well, generally, I think in Korea, they always like depend on your work. Like your company's always like, oh yeah, we need you. So you just feel the need to go to work even if you're not in the best condition.
Right. And I think that's why a lot of people in Korea are quickly deciding to change their posts. But now let's move on to another topic of interest, and that is dating. And we've had an episode on News Gen where we talked about millennials and Gen Z who've never been in a romantic relationship before, and we call them in Korean 모태솔로, which loosely translated means single since birth. And statistics show 3 out of 10 millennials and Gen Z in Korea have been single since birth, either by choice, given that it costs a lot financially to go out on dates, or because they haven't given the opportunity to meet their significant other. But apart from this distinctive 모태솔로 trend, do you guys think that there's a distinctive dating culture here in Korea based on your experience?
Well, something that I have found very special here in Korea is actually that how fast-paced and short-lived most of Korean relationships are. People become a couple after only meeting a handful of times, mostly they celebrate multiple anniversaries very publicly, and just being a couple is celebrated very publicly, and then within a short of time, they just break up and pretend like they don't even know each other.
Yeah, so like I think we make it really official when we start it, and then we
Like
make
from
it
day one on.
From
It's
day
like-
one, we have those apps where you count down the days when you've been together, those anniversaries. But then once it ends, it's very publicly ended. You erase all the pictures on social media.
Just never happened.
Yeah.
Which never happened. What do you think about the Korean dating culture?
Yeah, so that's like, I'm also really shocked at just how fast they start and end dating, and also the manner of which they are ending dating, like ghosting.
Ah, yes.
I find that to be really just rude and impolite, and like, I mean, I've heard of people who've been dating for 9 years, but their partner suddenly just starts ghosting them, and oh, that's your answer, we're no longer together. I mean, where's the respect in that? But one thing that I really found interesting when I first came to Korea, way back in 2012, was the couple look. And how they all, like, head to toe, decked out in couple attire, like their phones match, their clothes match, even their underwear matches. And I mean, in Canada, I had never seen that, but now I think in Canada it's sort of starting like to become popular, like at least like matching watches or like some accessories are similar, but maybe a t-shirt here and there, but
Like
not a whole
similar
wardrobe.
look,
Yeah.
but not like twin looks where you match head to toe.
Exactly.
And you mentioned Canada, so why don't we now look at the distinctive dating scene back at home, starting with Switzerland?
Well, in Switzerland, meeting through friends is still very popular.
Yeah.
And also just approaching someone that you're interested in is very normal, actually, may that be at work, in school, or any other public setting. Also, these days, the use of dating apps has become very normal.
Yeah.
And people don't really have a problem with saying that they have met their significant other through a dating app.
Really?
That has yeah, it has become very normal.
So it's really commonplace to just meet your significant other
Yes.
through dating apps, and people are open about
Like
it.
a few years ago, people were a bit like, oh, like, can I say that
Yeah,
I
they
met them on an
shushed
app?
it, yeah.
But now it's okay.
Oh.
But like generally, the dating scene is quite relaxed, and people are not really in a hurry to become a couple or like be in a relationship.
Like make it official.
Yes.
So what would they be in then?
Well, there's a lot of situationships going on before they become relationships, and these days people just have the freedom to have the dating life that suits them.
I respect that. What about you, Sydney? What's it like in Canada?
So yeah, same as in Canada, like same as in Switzerland. Dating apps are very common. Around like 36% of people are using dating apps to meet their significant other, and there are multitudes of dating apps now, so you can pick and choose where you want. And yeah, people are meeting more at like functions or similar hobbies, as well as school sports events and things like that. So it's pretty casual as well, and people aren't as quick to start officially dating. We go through different like tiers, like, oh, I'm seeing someone, then, oh, we're unofficially dating, to, okay, we're officially dating. Like, this is the day that we are boyfriend and girlfriend.
I see. So in Korea, we have this concept of some, right?
Yeah.
It means you have something with that partner, but you're not officially in a relationship. Is there the concept of some in Switzerland?
Yes, but it's a lot longer than in Korea, the sum period.
We have a thing called, we have a fling, and we also have I'm seeing somebody.
Okay, what's the difference there?
So a fling is very like 가볍게, very loosely, very like, oh yeah, it's just a fling, you know. But I'm seeing somebody is more like in terms like, okay, yeah, we are meeting for the potential of actually dating.
Are they exclusive then?
Some are, some aren't. It really depends on the people. So for my example, I would be exclusive. Even if I'm seeing somebody, I would be exclusive to that one person and see how that goes. But if it's a fling, then
it's open to opportunities.
Yeah, you're more open to opportunities.
I think that's the thing about relationships. Here in Korea, the same goes for, well, like we have dating apps, people meet naturally, but I guess the biggest distinction there would be making it official and how we define it. Now let's head into our last area of discussion. It's very closely related to dating though, it's marriage. And I've asked our regular panelists this question a few times now on our show, given that Korea does have a low marriage rate nowadays. Do you guys think getting married is a must?
I do not think getting married is a must anymore. If you look in older days, especially women depended on getting married because they were expected to be housewives and the husbands were expected to earn the money for the family. But these days, women receive very good education and do very well in job and business world. So I think especially women have gained independence to decide if they want or need marriage in their lives. So definitely not a must anymore.
What about you, Sydney?
Personally, I would like to get married if I find the right person. But yeah, I don't feel the need to get married. Like my family back in Canada, they're like, oh yeah, if you find someone, you find someone. And if you don't, you don't.
Right.
But here, as a woman, as a single woman, and at my age, people are like, oh, so are you married? I'm like, no. So you have a boyfriend, right? I'm like, no. What are you doing with your life then? It's like, I'm working.
I'm a strong, independent lady working right now.
Yeah, exactly. So there's still like, you feel the sort of like pressure.
There is pressure, for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, especially during the holidays.
I was going to mention, now that we're heading towards Chuseok, we're going to be hearing that question often. Are you married?
Definitely.
And right after, whether you have a boyfriend or are you married, it's when are you going to have kids?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? And South Korea has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, recently reached 0.7, guys. So we have the lowest birth rate in the world, and the government is trying to fuel more efforts on that front. But what do you guys think youngsters in Canada and Switzerland think about having kids in their country, and are there any government policies to back that up?
Well, as Switzerland considers youth as 14, 15 to mid-early 20s, I think they still have other priorities than thinking about having children, like establishing themselves in lives. The average age to have children in Switzerland is actually around 30.9 years.
That's quite young, too.
Yes.
And do you think a lot of your friends want to have kids?
Well, at one point they will, but I think right now they're probably busy with other things still.
It's not their #1 priority.
No.
I see. What about in Canada?
So for Canada, like the birth rate is around like 1.49. So it's definitely lower than previous years, and it is continually getting lower because just a lot of people don't want to have kids just because of the burden, the financial burden that it is. And so to try and help ease that burden, the governments are trying to implement better childcare. So like daycares and other facilities to help parents who are working, because in this day and age, just one parent can't be working. Both parents have to be doing work. And so to help the mother and the father have a better work-life balance and family life, they're giving better parental leave. So
that's really nice.
For the mother, maternal leave, and for the father.
Maternity,
and they're encouraging the father to take more parental leave. So it gives them a better chance to bond with their child.
Yeah.
And also it actually boosts their performance when they get back to work. And it also helps the mother too get a break from carrying 24/7 for a child.
And the government is on board and companies are on board, but I think the social atmosphere is very important as well. For the concept of knowing that both parents are there and present for the child, that's really important.
Exactly, and then also the security to know that even after the mother is finished with her maternity leave, she is able to go back to the workforce, to her exact same job. And the jobs are provided.
And the certainty there actually encourages more people, especially women, to actually have kids.
Exactly.
So we've talked about a lot of different concerns that our youth are going through and some issues that need more highlighting done. But as it's in light of Youth Day, I would now like to wrap up our discussion to be talking about what your plans are for Youth Day in Korea tomorrow and a line of activities that are prepared.
Yes, there is a lot of going on tomorrow, from K-pop concerts to flea markets.
Ooh.
I saw that there's also stuff happening in Busan too. But I had a pretty rough week, so I think I'll probably be resting tomorrow. But like, if I do have the energy, I might go check out some Youth Day event if there's any in my area.
Yeah, enjoy your youth. What about you, Sydney?
So yeah, I've also heard that there's acknowledgement speeches for youth who are participating in their community, as well as the K-pop concerts, and just like creative corners as well. I will personally be having lunch with a friend who's also in her youth, so we'll be celebrating our own Youth Day.
The definition of Korean youth or Canadian youth?
International.
International youth. All right, so let's enjoy Youth Day tomorrow. And it was such a pleasure talking about different youth concerns and how you guys are perceiving them and wanting to tackle them too. And in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Patrick.
Well, my pleasure to be here today.
It was such a pleasure hearing from you today. And Sydney.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful pleasure.
All right. And thank you everyone for watching. Enjoy Youth Day tomorrow, and we'll see you next week. We are
New Generation.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, make sure you